I am feeling happy. Do you know why? I'm about to cook something wonderful. Today, we're going to make reverse sear steak, accompanied by port wine sauce and pan-fried arugula with garlic and mushroom sauté cooked just perfect. And we end with wedge salad with your favorite blue cheese dressing and you don't have to watch the show. There's also some beautiful accoutrements. And I'm gonna tell you the story about the first time that I took my parents to the steakhouse here in America. Come for the recipes. Stay for the story. The first time I saw an American steak, it was so big they took the whole plate. I was thinking to myself, where did they get this from? To us, beef was something thin pieces of meat in Sicily that we would do, we would stuff them, we would roll them, we would braise them. I never seen a full New York steak in its proper extension. So when my father came to visit me here in America, I took my father to the steakhouse. I said, Papa, you gotta see this, it's amazing. And I wanted to show him the different cuts of steak that they have. And they're beautiful cuts of steaks. I remember my father and I walking by the meat station as they had all these pieces of meat displayed on the window, and I would show to my dad, that is called New York, non fa importanza, non mi importa nulla, which translated in English means it don't matter. And he would make a beeline for the salad bar. Today I'm going to share with you a new unique way to make the steak through a technique called reverse sear. And with you, we'll also share how to make my favorite sauce that goes with steak, and it's a port wine sauce. Simple, the steps are 1, 2, 3, and it tastes fantastic. Let me show you how to make it. The oil's already in the pan, it's getting hot, so the first thing that we're gonna add is the mirepoix. It's equal parts of chopped onion, carrots, and celery. In Italian, we call it soffritto. You'll find this basic beginning for the making of a sauce or for the making of a stock. What I'm about to do next is unusual. I found that chopped bacon, once added to it, starts and gives to the whole sauce a presence which is splendid. The bacon, especially in sauces like this, when added earlier on, opens up, it blooms the flavor of the sauce. The next thing that we're going to do is going to surprise you. This is brown sugar, a half of a teaspoon. We're gonna add it to the sauce, and you say, sugar to a sauce? Why? Why? Bacon, salty, brown sugar. Who's ever heard of brown sugar in a sauce? I discovered this by accident, but the brown sugar is very important because it's loaded with molasses. And it creates an effect of yin and yang, the beauty of opposites, salt and sweet. How many of you in the past have had chocolate with sea salt on top of it? And what a wonderful flavor that is. And I thought to myself, why can't we apply some of those principles in the making of the sauce? And that is the flavor that we're chasing. So there's enough salt in here already from what we had done with the bacon. We put a bit of sugar, but let's continue this. And now we go with tomato paste. I learned this in the old days when I was making my own veal stock and demi-glace, and still I find it to be an addition that to any sauces opens up another layer of flavor. Tomato paste is very important because now it's going to attach itself in a certain way, glaze with a tomatoey finish, all the ingredients we already had in the pan. And as it reduces, it creates this wonderful crust which will open up additional flavors as the sauce slowly but surely reduces to its perfect rendition. It takes it closer to my Mediterranean beginnings at the same time. Watch this. What's coming up next is spectacular. This is thyme, fresh thyme. Fresh thyme is a perfect combo to this. If you don't have it, you can use dry thyme. Don't worry about it, because in the process of finishing this sauce, once it's done, we'll strain it. So if it's dry thyme and you're concerned that it might be difficult to chew on and all that, in the end, it will not be part of the sauce because we'll make this very, very fancy. And now we go with the star of the show, port wine. And by the way, when you make this for yourself at home, you don't need to use very expensive aged port. Regular port, the less expensive one, is fantastic for this sauce because it's able to pick up all the flavors from all the other ingredients that we give into it. Now, additional liquid that I like at this point is beef stock. Beef stock because we're gonna use this for the steak. And then for another reach of deepness, I like to put some tomato sauce as well. You can use my recipe for fresh tomato sauce, yours. You can just buy it at the store. It will do a fantastic job. Now, the color that you see, this deep red, dark color that's in the sauce, is going to deepen even more. All the elements that I put in, think of them as colored pencils that are putting together a painting. You don't know this yet, but you are about to become a culinary painter. Once we get to this point that all the ingredients are combined, we're gonna raise up the heat just a little bit. We're gonna bring this to a boil. The sauce is starting to boil, so we're going to put this on the side of the stove. And while this is finished cooking, I wanna show you how to make the steak. I can't wait to share with you what I've learned in the making of a reverse sear steak. Before we get started, we have the oven already preheated at 195 degrees. The steak first is placed in the oven to cook at a very low heat. During that time, something magical happens. Right here, as you can see, there are enormous amount of striation of the fat. This is a prime cut of steak. This fat will slowly melt, and as it does, it will break down the texture of the steak so that when we sear it, the steak will be ultra tender and ultra juicy. First thing we're going to do, we're going to brush the steak on both sides with a little bit of olive oil, all the way around, the front and the back. And here we are with it. And then we're going to flavor it. And this is my secret. I call this Nick Stellino magic rub. The recipe is very simple. 1 tablespoon of brown sugar, 1 tablespoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of pepper, 1 tablespoon of paprika, 1 tablespoon of onion powder, and 1 tablespoon of garlic powder. Why? I'm Sicilian, I need to have garlic. We're shaking it real well, and now we're gonna cook the steak with it. Now, what I love about this is the presence of the brown sugar. It will crust up the outside of the steak, bringing in these wonderful flavors. On the other side as well. But also is going to help the blooming of the flavors to a whole different level. That's all that you need to do to flavor the steak. Now, let's put the steak into the oven at 195 degrees for 45 minutes. What a beauty. We have taken this baby right out of the oven. It's warm, but at the same time, it's not cooked all the way through. Some of the interior fat has broken down, has moistened the steak, already given an enormous amount of flavor. You notice how it's darkened up somewhat on top. On the sides, it's because of the low heat that we have had. So the steak already has gotten its pre-sear, its reverse sear in a certain way. The next thing we're gonna do, we're going to sear the steak and cook it all the way through. Oil in the pan is super hot. Now, let me show you to cook this baby just right. Our goal is to give it a nice crust on all sides. We want to maintain the meat on the inside tender, juicy. But why is the flavor so much better on a reverse sear than it is when you simply cook it or grill it on the barbecue? The beautiful part is the combination of these two different type of heats which affect the texture of the meat in a completely different way. Let's turn, let's see what she looks like. Now, you can see why it is that I love using this. What is there already that you can see is what the brown sugar has done. It's given this wonderful color. But the best part about this also is that you don't want to cook the steak on high heat. I usually go for something like this that I want to take into medium rare, between 4 to 5 minutes per side. That's all that you need. We're almost there with the steak. The last step that I like to do is for a few minutes at the end, I like to arrosé the steak. What is the arrosé? It's the adding of the butter to the steak. The butter, as it cooks into the oil, allows us to bathe the steak with all this beautiful glossiness that the butter brings to this game. It penetrates inside the steak into the texture of the meat, giving the meat this beautiful, beautiful finish. Well, the sauce is basically done. The steak is basically finished. All that we need to do at this point, we need to take it out, we need to let it rest. And while the steak is resting, let me show you how to make one of my favorite side dishes. Mushrooms with arugula. These mushrooms, I recently found them on my supermarket. I actually never seen them before. They're called beech, B-E-E-C-H mushrooms. And they are so cute. Look at them. The oil is super hot. The mushrooms are gonna cook quickly. The juices inside the mushroom is really what we're after. And as the mushrooms are cooking, we wanna give it some very basic flavoring. We go with a little bit of pepper. Always a little bit of salt. Now, you can do this with any kind of mushrooms you like. The technique remains the same. These guys, I've chosen them just because they're unique. A little bit of chives are on top. The chives I'm using in substitution of the onion. Why do I like them so much? I love chives because they bring out the aroma of onion, but in a very elegant fashion. I would consider this almost like the couture herb. Next, we're going to add my secret, a few shakes of the Nick Stellino's magic rub. Of course, you know the recipe for this. Brown sugar, salt, pepper, onion powder, garlic powder, paprika. My magic combination. It changes the color a little bit. Look at that, look at that, look at that. And mind you, it was just a light dusting. This is like a dusting of magic that we're putting in it. The flavors that are in there. A little bit of chopped garlic. Not too much, just enough to give it the Sicilian presence. And the last thing that you want to do is to add the arugula. Now, when you add the arugula, I want you to lower the heat, and that is the key, because all that we want to do at this point, the arugula is full of water. This is baby arugula, by the way. If you want something even more elegant, more formal than this, instead of putting it whole, you can chop the arugula, but I kind of like to see it in this form. The mushrooms are just about ready. I like to turn off the heat at this point, and just a touch of butter. Look at this. I love looking at the mushroom cooking right before we're ready to pull them out. And the truth is that the reason why I love these mushrooms is because they remind me of the mushrooms that my father and I used to go hunting for in the forest in Palermo in the old days when I was living in Sicily. Now, they were not beech mushrooms, they were larger than these, but it's the shape, the look, and maybe it's the feel as well. Or maybe it's my memory was playing tricks on me. I don't know. Our steak is ready. The sauce, I still need to finish up. Let me put this aside. And let me show you exactly how to finish the sauce and how to plate this astonishing dish. I'm gonna set up a bowl with a strainer because I want to strain the sauce of all the ingredients that it has in there. So here we go. Once the sauce is in the strainer, attentively, gently, make sure that all of it strains through. Now, what I'm going to do, I wanna show you how to degrease the sauce. This is the instrument, you want to pay attention to it. This is unique. As you can see, the beak of this particular instrument starts at the very bottom. The reason why it's so low is because most of the fat, as we let it rest for a few moments, will come from the top. And then we'll be able to pour it, having come out, so that the fat will get trapped at the bottom. Not all of it, but pretty close to 80%. Now, I want to show you exactly what I mean because you need to see it. As we stay here, this is the most important part. You see how dark the color is here? Already some of the fat has come to the top. What I propose before you finish this is that you let it rest for about 4 or 5 minutes, and most of the fat will come to the top. Then we'll put it in a smaller pan. I'm going to put some heat on it, and we're gonna let this reduce by, I would say, another half. At this point, we turn off the heat. This is the part I love the most. You look over the stove and everything is absolutely perfect. The sauce is ready to go. The steak has rested. It's ready to be served. These mushrooms, they look beautiful. All we need to do is plate them. Let me show you how to do it. The mushroom on one side of the plate, and they're so full of flavor, so crispy, and so cute. And this is how magic happens in my kitchen. Mamma mia, che bellezza. One of the most beautiful shots when you plate the steak, sport sauce is beautiful, viscous, deep, full of flavor. You can see it from the color how gorgeous she is. Many ways to go at it. You can put the sauce on top if you want to, but if I was you, I'd just place it on the side. and always serve some extra sauce on the side because it's too good. And this is how you make reverse sear steak with pan-fried mushrooms, arugula, and a delicious port wine sauce. I mean, the salad bar in those days were spectacular. All sorts of dressing, different types of salads, condiments, accoutrements. I mean, it was just astonishing. And my father would compose the salads with 2, 3, 4 different dressings at a time. I remember when my mom came with my dad one year to visit as well. And the first thing that my father said, Massimiliano, you gotta see this. It's amazing, I tell you. And my mom would say, what is amazing? They have salads for miles. And this salad I'm about to share with you, which is a wedge salad, more often than not you'll find it in just about any steakhouse that you will go to me, is a fantastic salad, but I wanted to find a different way how to make it. Something that you can make at home with ingredients that you'll find at your local supermarket with techniques as simple as 1, 2, 3, but a unique flavor. Oh, what a flavor. Let me show you how to make it. One of the ways to cook the bacon so you don't burn it is to always put a little bit of oil in the pan where you place the bacon. To start it out with medium heat and then to bring it down to medium low. And as you simmer the bacon over the simmering fat underneath, you will notice most of the fat will render out and the bacon will start to brown. And that's the part that I love the most. The browning of the bacon is full of flavor. More often than not, I see my friends when they cook the bacon to cook the whole strip of bacon in the pan. Nothing wrong with that. Excellent way to do it. But since I know that I'm going to use this bacon to actually top the salad, one of the things that I like to do is to cut the bacon before I cook it. Why? It gives me several advantages. The first advantage is that by being smaller, it requires a smaller pan in which to place it. Second, there is a lot of pieces of bacon that I can move around as if I'm sauteing onions, so to speak, and it makes it a lot easier to turn and to see how the bacon is getting to the perfect browning that I am looking forward to. The bacon is ready. You take it out with a slaughter spoon. The oil that is still in the pan is extremely important to us because in the very oil, we will flash cook the tomatoes. The tomatoes, the way in which I treat them, require an extra step. First, we cut them by half, and this is what most people do. At this point, they just add it to the salad. But I think that the tomatoes, to be unique, need to have a personality of their own. This personality is developed by 2 layers of flavoring. One is by adding fresh thyme, but that's not it. What really makes this interesting is by adding Nick Stellino's magic rub, which has plenty of brown sugar, salt, pepper, paprika, onion powder, garlic powder. But the one thing that seals the flavor of these tomatoes in perfectly is this quick flash heat that we do into the bacon fat that's left behind. We do a quick heat flash, meaning we just toss it in no more than a minute. We do not want these tomatoes to collapse. We still want it to maintain the structural integrity of the tomato per se, otherwise you end up with tomato sauce. But when you pull them out and you let them rest for a few more moments, one of the reasons that you will love this is that as you place it on top of the salad, with every bite that you take, the tomatoes by themselves add this wonderful flavor. Within the context of your first bite, you will understand what paradise is all about. And that is what I think every time I put together a dish. In the making of the dressing for the salad, one of the important elements, which is not common in the making of this particular recipe, is the usage of the sweet and sour element of it. There's something unique about my dressing, and that is creating what us Italians call sour. What is sour? Sour is the mixture of sugar and vinegar reduced together to create a reduce-like syrup that you add attentively, minimal amount, to the making of anything, from fish to meat to sauces. In this particular case, what I want to do, I want to cook the sugar. In the case, I've used brown sugar. Why? Brown sugar has molasses. You can see it already in here. I use white vinegar. In spite of that, look at the molasses melting into it. You can see the vinegar reducing. You cannot smell what I do, but this is magic. There is the sweetness of the brown sugar melted into the molasses, separating from the molasses, and look at what a beautiful, thick finish this is. We're not going to use all of it, and when you do this at home, keep this in mind. In terms of volume, you want to reduce it by almost 2/3. It's what left behind is going to be a very, very thick syrup that will give a sweet and sour element to your dressing. That's it. It has reduced exactly to where we want it to be. We're gonna let this be, and let me show you how to make the dressing and how to cut the salad. The sweet and sour syrup is finished. It has cooled off for quite some time. And now we're ready to make the dressing for the salad. We have all the ingredients ready. Let me show you exactly how to make the dressing. We're gonna get started with a little bit of mayonnaise. It can be your very own homemade mayonnaise or store-bought. To the mayonnaise, we add some sour cream. And to the sour cream, a little bit of buttermilk. Then gently, you mix it all together, just like this. And I prefer the buttermilk because I think that the cream is too thick, and I think that the milk is too light. As a matter of fact, I think the milk is a bit too watery, and it will make this dressing a little bit too runny. While this is mixing, I like to add some other elements. One of the elements that I love is chive. In Italian, the name for chives is erba cipollina. Well, it's a mouthful. What erba cipollina means is little onion herb. I think it's very descriptive because it really captures the flavor that the chive add to this. Without being overwhelming, they bring this infusion of onion-like aroma that is not offensive, it's very elegant, and it fits perfect in this particular dressing. And now there are some other seasoning elements. Paprika, a little bit of onion powder, always to your taste, a little bit of salt, sea salt, of course, and a little bit of pepper. And here, of course, is our blue cheese, because our blue cheese is the essence, the centrality of this dish. The blue cheese, as I add it, basically remains whole. What we're taking is scrambled blue cheese. We do not want for this to melt. One way of making the dressing is to melt all the ingredients together, but that's not what I want. At this point, we're pretty much where we want to be, except, and here it is, the magic and secret addition. This is the reduction that we made earlier with the brown sugar and the vinegar, which is now completely cool. This was white vinegar, by the way. This is the molasses that has melted away from the brown sugar that's really giving this incredible look to this dish. Why is this so important? There is a bit of the sweet and sour taste, agrodolce, as we say in Italian. Slightly changes the color, but it brings an element of flavor to this dish, which is out of this world. Well, the next thing I want to show you is how to cut the wedge salad. First thing we do, we cut the salad in half. Once we cut it in half, we cut it in quarters. There's a series of leaves on the outside that I want you to slightly take off. These leaves tend to be a little bit on the brown side. They're somewhat damaged. Prettiness is at the core of everything. Another thing that you want to do is to flatten the bottom so the salad sits perfectly. And also what I like to do right here is to cut this part of it. Let's do it with another piece so you see exactly. First, we go and we flatten it. Why is this important, by the way? I'll show you in just a second. Now in this one, as you can see, there is not the core because most of it was in this cut, so we'll use this as my favorite look. Once you cut through the core, now you're left with a half moon shape, but you're still not over to it. Think this. If you simply put the half moon on top of the plate and you move the plate around to bring it to the table, because of the fact that there is not a proper stability, the piece of the salad, the whole shape, the whole wedge of it could actually slip right out. It's happened to me before. That's how I discovered this trick. So what I want you to do, look at the biggest area of the salad in the back of it, and with your knife, attentively, slice a little flat piece to it so that you have now created for the salad a flat surface in which the salad can actually stand still in the middle of the plate. Not only as you decorate it with the other ingredients, but also as you bring it to the diners at your table with pride and joy. You will thank me for this. And now, we're ready to plate. First time I had the salad was at a steakhouse, and I could not believe how flavorful this was. But as you take every bite, there is a series of flavors all building on top of each other and giving us the salad, which is a steak by itself. You have all these incredible flavors. We have the croutons that connected with the bacon that has this wonderful finish to it, connects with the tomatoes were flashed in there. We also have the blue cheese dressing that just gives it the dimension that we're looking for. This is not your average everyday salad, but in spite of the fact that I came to the steakhouse for a steak, this salad was more attractive to me than the steak was. And this is how you make wedge salad, Stellino style.
You have to understand that to us, a salad is something that we have in our daily diet, but the only dressing I knew was vinegar and olive oil. It all came from my grandma's farm anyway. I ain't never seen a Thousand Island. I never seen a blue cheese dressing and all those other things that come with it. I have to say, I was barely in my 20s at the time, and just to see my father so happy, to see him find so much joy just in putting together a salad, I thought it was one of the greatest moments of my life. To this day, every time I walk by a salad bar, I always think of my father. I'm thinking, and you guys are working on my show, walking around with this thing wrapped in plastic and you eat them. I would have made you sandwiches, for God's sake. I would have had pasta for everybody. We sit down, we eat, and then walk around with those sticks. And then they go tell everybody that work with me. No, really, they do. You should see them. They're like this when they start out. Especially this guy. He's fast, he's quick. You have no idea. This guy could dive and catch an arancina in mid-flight. Next time I make arancina, I'll make a few extra for him. He needs them. Look at him. So tiny.